Hello, everyone. Welcome to the MetaMorphosis podcast. I'm your host, Milan. Today's topic is going to be very sensitive, and I've been contemplating on doing this one for a while now. The reason for that is that it concerns my previous relationship, the breakup, the aftermath of that, the suffering, the pain, the manipulation, the lies, the deception, the confusion. And it's so difficult to talk about it that I already feel my body shiver and my breathing becoming irregular. And I want to dedicate this episode to all the men who are going through heartbreaks, breakups, manipulation, manipulative behavior, lies, libel, slander, abuse. This is not going to be a negative podcast. The purpose of this episode is not to shame, blame, humiliate anyone, but to take responsibility through truth and to share truth with the world about understanding aspects of relationships, and also sharing a personal story that I hope will serve men to protect themselves from women that unfortunately might have not been given the opportunity to learn how to love and treat men properly. I have been very active on social media lately, just trying to promote a certain message. And that message is that men matter too. Men have emotions too. Men can elope too. Men can really... It is important to us as men to understand that there is a world for us that we can be a part of, that we can be heard in. And that hasn't been the case in my case. And I'm not making this about myself. I don't want this to be about myself. It will be my story, but it will not be about me per se. It will be more sharing a personal experience in hopes that men will come to understand themselves better, their relationships better, and their partners better. Now, for many of you who are hearing this podcast will know bits and pieces of the story. And of course, the story is never complete. Please have that in mind. The story is never going to be complete. There is never going to be full disclosure because there's personal interest involved, always. There's going to be so much, I'm not sure what the word in English is, but when the word comes from one person into the second person, third person, it changes, it shifts, it mutates. It's not the same thing. So for those of you who know me personally, in person, listen to this very carefully and try to eliminate everything that you know about me. Because it turns out that many people that I communicate with on social media, which is no real communication as far as I'm concerned, do not actually know who they're speaking to. And I don't mean in an authoritarian way, like, oh, you don't know who you're speaking to. I mean that you're not speaking to the same person. And I'm absolutely certain that I'm not speaking to the same person either. And that is because we've grown apart as people. And we do that when we lose community, contact, touch, when there's division, when there's separation, when there's all these kinds of things. So listen to this very closely and carefully. And your judgment and opinion doesn't ultimately matter. What matters is that you listen and know the truth, if truth is what you're truly interested in. So here it goes. Yep, ambulance is a good sign. So, I broke up with my partner. I don't like that word. Girlfriend. One day after her birthday. Last year. And if I'm not mistaken, that was 19th of November. So I broke up on the 20th of November. And the reason I did that was that I understood on that night, celebrating the birthday, just, you know, spending time with her friends, with my friend, observing life for what it is, just seeing, this girl has moved in with me too soon, because I didn't also, I rushed into that relationship. And it was nice, don't get me wrong. I genuinely enjoyed and learned a lot from that woman. The truth also was that I did not see this woman being a mother of my children. And I'm a 30-year-old guy. So for me, 29 at the time. So for me, that was a full body answer. That was a full body no, as in this is a little girl. This is not a woman. This is a child. And I say that with the utmost respect, because there are women that will present themselves as adult women and that will appear as adult women. And I'm not saying that my ex is not that by any means. But there are women that are simply not taught certain qualities, that don't possess certain qualities that are taught. How to treat a man, how to build a relationship, how to nurture the man. It's not her duty, it's not her responsibility. Don't get in my case. But it simply should be. It's the women that I'm seeing now are extremely generous and nurturing because that is in accordance with their nature. And it feels authentic and genuine. And I feel genuinely taken care of in that relationship as a man. And that allows me to step into my masculine role and provide and protect and whatnot. And I simply didn't see that with my ex. And I just couldn't. I'm like that. I can't stand that for a day. I cannot lie. I cannot manipulate. I cannot pretend. I'm definitely not going to pretend. And I just said the next day, I'm sorry, I can't do this anymore. I just can't. And I remember that I was so ashamed of taking full responsibility for that one of the excuses I gave her was that I want to see other women. Which wasn't untrue, because there's also, again, if I don't see this woman, if I do not see her as qualifying to be a woman like that I want to have children with, and by the way, she was very attractive, that woman. It was. I mean, right now my story, like my interpretation of her is more objective rather than subjective, and still, attractive woman, of course. But at the time, again, the older I get as a man, the more certain qualities I require and want in a woman. And when we spoke the next day, when I said how things were, I said, I want to see other women because naturally I've always had my options open and available. Now, the tricky part in that was that she remained in that apartment because she didn't have anywhere else to go. And I knew that. So I let her stay in my apartment. And that was not a good idea. That was a very interesting outcome of events because I still loved her. I still cared for her, of course. And we were still together and close and intimate and everything while I was still seeing other women. But what I noticed happening as time progressed was the increase of aggression and the increase in hostility, general overall hostility, rudeness, and emotion, which I always encourage to speak about openly. Like, what's the problem? Shall we talk? And contrary to the common belief that for women, they just want to share their emotion, they want to open up. This is exactly what happened, but it wasn't enough because the problem was way, way deeper than that. The problem is also biological. The problem is not just meant to be resolved through communication, through opening up or whatnot. Because don't forget, you are also a biological entity. You are also a human that... if there's a guy who you've been with for 6 months and lived together and had this entire future planned, but that's a different topic because that turned out to be a lie too. It's actually a manipulation strategy. It's called future trapping. It's when women qualify for a relationship to men by telling men that they want children. And that actually gets men really riled up because they're like, oh yeah, she wants children. I'm going to enter this relationship. I learned the hard way that the antidote to this is that this woman should want your children. So I want you, if you're a guy listening to this, I want you to take one lesson from this that I'm going to share, one of the lessons, which is that if a woman says she wants children, that's not a qualifying factor for a relationship. The qualifying factor for a relationship is that she wants your children and that you can tell that every day. If anyone tells you that's insecure, that if anyone tells you that you're being an insecure man because of that, that's bullshit. And these people don't understand you as a man. And turns out, majority of people don't understand men because men's needs were never catered to and taken care of. But we'll go into that as the deeper I go into this podcast. So don't forget, she needs to want your children, not I want children. I want your children. And I'm actually happily and fortunately meeting women who are saying things like that. Although I'm unfortunately rejecting women like that, I happen to live that kind of life right now. I'm not proud, nor am I saying that's a good thing that I reject women's offers for fatherhood and family, because that's a dream come true. But at the same time, I'm now in the process of dating non-exclusively so that I can select a woman that I would want to have children with. Again, that's a different story. So moving on. And all this got really complicated and started becoming really, again, I said hostile. By the time I was about to move, I was about to move from the apartment because that woman and we signed a contract to move into a new apartment together. And that's the thing, that felt off as well because I just wanted to be alone. And I told her, because again, she had nowhere to go. Before she moved into my apartment, she was living with some guy that was a complete stranger to her, with whom she had a very strange agreement that he was going to take pictures of her if she moves into the apartment, and then she denied that. Again, lies and manipulation, and again, gaslighting and confusion, and again, me feeling extremely confused about the situation. But still, since I decided not to be with this woman in a relationship anymore, partially due to all that confusion and none of her stories making any sense, because, for example, when she was living with that guy, she said, and I asked her this directly, I'm a guy. A lot of women don't understand that they're not being held accountable for their actions and what they do and say. And allegedly, she tells this guy, I'm gonna, you can take pictures of me if I move into your apartment, because if you have a little brain, you can see what's going on there. But this woman clearly didn't see that, or she did. She just kind of manipulated that or kind of twisted it. And that made sense to me a lot later because of the reasons I'm going to share in the podcast. So anyway, when I asked her, why did you move in with a guy you don't know in his house? This is a guy. This is a senior guy, like an older guy, like about 60 years old, which is very, very creepy. Because this woman was 26 at the time. And those were red flags that I didn't see coming. I mean, I saw them, I just ignored them. And when she said that he wanted to take pictures of her, my response was, what the fuck? Like, what the fuck? And instead of, again, I learned this now after the relationship. Instead of me saying, well, this is fucked up, like this is wrong, I'm you know what, like, you take care of yourself, you figure this thing out. Instead, so mind how clever this is. Instead, when I asked her, she said, yeah, fuck him. Yeah, you're right. And I didn't say anything. You're right. Like, he's a creep. And this was my first interaction with a woman avoiding accountability and responsibility. This was one of the majority of red flags that I ran into in this relationship. And I'm not saying I'm perfect. Don't get me wrong. I'm not bashing this woman or saying, oh God, this relationship is like this. No, I'm telling you guys, this is real. We're not holding women accountable for the consequences of their action, which doesn't mean punish, which doesn't mean shame or blame or whatnot. No, do we want to learn about life so that we can conduct ourselves properly in life? Or are we just going to go mindlessly and pretend that everything we do and say is okay? And again, that was an enormous red flag for me. And there were many, many more in the relationship. I'm describing that process in my book, while of course trying to protect this woman's identity as much as I can. I cannot guarantee that, but I'm doing my best. Because I'm writing that book for it to be a manifesto to guys about what to avoid in women and relationships. Don't worry, it's not a revenge book. It's not it comes from a good place. So now I move out of the apartment, and that's, sad, and sharing sad moments and things like that. And I decide to leave the apartment to her. Of course, because I don't want her to go back in the streets. I don't want her to go and sleep at a random guy's house, which again, if you're a 26-year-old woman, I mean, I woke up to this a bit later, but if you're a 26-year-old woman and you're and you have nowhere to be, you haven't settled in your life, then for me, it told me some things about what I actually want and expect from a woman, as in seeing the ability of her to take care of herself and to choose the situations she puts herself in responsibly, which I didn't see at the time. I do now. So when all that happened, I moved into that apartment, and I felt how awfully lonely that was, and how dull that was, because I just left a relationship. And this woman I wanted to marry, and then my eyes opened and realizing that, I don't want her to be the mother of my children, and that changes things, that really changes the way you approach women as well. Because when you're not interested in a woman to be the mother of your children, that really loses its essence in a sense. And I don't date my exes. I don't go back to my relationships. I'm not in contact with my exes. I have respect for them, of course, but there's no going back. Sorry. So when I moved into my apartment, that's when really things started, when shit started hitting the fan, because the level of aggression now from this woman was increasing without me understanding why. So there were so many emotions, and guys, I want you to know one thing. You're not responsible for women's emotions, especially if you're not together in an intimate relationship. All of us go through processes that are unique to us in our experience, and you're not responsible for women in any way. You can choose to be the shoulder, the support, the whatnot, but in this case, this was my ex, my former girlfriend, and I was simply not interested in those kinds of things, because I was already moving on and getting on with my life. However, then I needed to get my things from that apartment, and that's when I started realizing that things were getting really shitty. Because for me, it was very simple. Hey, I want to get my things from my apartment, because I couldn't do that in one fell swoop as I moved into that. And I actually asked her, can you please take care of these things for me until I decide to come pick them up? Sure. So when I did, there was kind of not time for that, nor for anything else. There was simply no time. And I know she has plenty of time. And there was simply no time for that. No time for picking the things up. No time for arranging a conversation to sit and talk about things. And again, this was one of the biggest red flags in the entire relationship. That when it comes to discussing important things, conflict, a hardship, a difficulty, something that has happened that has resulted in a turmoil of the relationship, there was never time for that. And then I wondered, well, does this woman prioritize this relationship at all? Because guys, if you are men watching this, don't forget this. The medium is the message. Don't expect women to tell you how things are. They will always demonstrate that. And if women show no interest in resolving conflict that is important to you, then that means that literally that's neglecting your own needs. And you yourself neglecting your needs and the woman neglecting those needs. And you don't need to deal with women like that. Because you deserve, not deserve by the virtue of existence, by you being that same guy, that same person, you deserve someone who does the same thing, who wants to sit down and have difficult talks. Because that is how you build relationships. That is how you sit down. This is the problem we have. Let's please talk about it. Because often, and most of the times, just speaking about a problem is resolution of the problem. Understanding the problem is resolution of the problem. So moving on. And of course, when I start asking questions as to why is this a problem? Can we please meet? Can I please get my things? Then she starts demanding things back, as in negotiating for me to pick my things up. And this turns very creepy because at a certain point she refuses communication via phone because she starts screaming over the phone at me. And these are the conversations that I recorded for my own safety and security. And hangs up. Like when we have a discussion and I want to get deeper into something because she doesn't want to meet because of course it's uncomfortable and all kinds of things. So when I suggested to meet, no. When I suggested to speak, then that was uncomfortable. And I see this avoidance pattern. And again, I'm not responsible for this person anymore. I'm no longer that guy who said he was going to take care of her. I'm responsible for myself. She's responsible for herself. And we meet if our cups are full. But there was no interest in doing that. So then I was actually on the verge of calling the police and saying, hey, people, because I felt I haven't had my things held hostage and held against me as a bargaining chip in my own apartment, which I felt was absurd because I actually gave the apartment to that woman for her to live in. And I was just thinking, what the fuck is happening? Why is this happening? And what is the reason for this happening? And I'm sure that if this woman tells her story, it's going to be completely different. And again, this is not about me shaming or blaming her. This is just me disclosing the truth of what has happened. So when I reach out to her, the constant notion is together. Can we resolve this together? Can we come together? Can we please resolve this because this matters to me, and so that both of us can move on, because we're clearly not going to be together. Especially after the things constantly escalating. Can we please do this together? Because for me, that's the most important thing. I don't care about the outcome of this because I know what the outcome is not going to be. So can we come together and resolve this conflict and resolve this issue, no matter what it is? Because again, that was one of the promises we made in the relationship. And guys, if you're watching this, I want you to listen to this very carefully. And this comes from the best place possible. Do not trust what women say, trust what women do. And if you have some kind of an agreement with a woman and she's not respecting it, walk away. Walk away instantly. Don't negotiate, don't settle. Because if you made a wholeheartedly committed agreement with a woman to come together, resolve things together. I mean, fuck, I even had a book with that woman. We bought a book, like I think 1 month within the relationship, in which we wrote how we were going to talk to each other. Can you imagine that? And that's commitments to me. That's also something that I initiated. And it doesn't matter who initiated it. It matters that if the other person doesn't fully resonate with it, but says, yeah, this sounds good, let's do it, but is not there, like not here, not here, not here in the body, then that won't happen. And you can put a colossal amount of effort. It won't change anything. Because we had a literal book, a fucking book that's like a manifesto of our relationship. We wrote everything in it. And it literally had not rules, but a guide, a manual, rather, of how to communicate to each other lovingly, openly, respectfully, directly, non-aggressively, assertively. Just here, when there is a problem, we do this. When there is a problem, we sit down, we hold hands, and we talk. Now, when I, as a man, do my part in showing up, and when the woman doesn't, after a certain time, I no longer do that because I'm alone in that. And I was alone in that for some time before breaking up because I saw that this woman did not have the intention of neither forming a family, neither having children, because what this woman was addicted to substances and to attention and to validation and to a world that I was very, very foreign to, that was very foreign to me. And me being a beta blue pill conditioned guy, I mean, I had alpha traits always, but I was beta conditioned, absolutely, or blue pill conditioned at least. I saw all these things, but I still thought, and guys, this is my warning to you. Like, if you think you can improve a woman, if you think that she's going to be better, if you kind of polish her here and there, that's not your job. Like, you're supposed to deal with the final product. You're interested in the final product. You're not interested in making this woman better. When you choose a partner, you choose someone who has put in the work, who has invested genuine amount of effort. And believe me, the more you meet women that say that they have, but turns out that they're not, the more your filter will become clearer and allow you to see that most women, and thus most people, are frauds. And that is one of the strategies, reproductive strategies, and manipulative tactics that women use to get into relationships. That they will qualify for a relationship by displaying qualities, but not embodying the qualities that are required for a relationship. And I want you to take this with an enormous grain of salt, because again, I'm reiterating this. This is not in any way meant to offend anyone or blame, shame, guilt trip, whatnot. This is real, and this is real life, and your time is your most precious resource on this planet, in this life. If you give it to people that don't respect it and that don't appreciate it, it will annihilate you. It will destroy you. It will rebuild you. But I was almost, as a guy, again, I'm a guy and I say, hey, I was obliterated, this relationship did this for me. Oh, but don't you think that's a good thing? Because now you know what to stay away from. And I'm like, yeah, fair enough. I don't disagree. But that's a very dumb statement, because that doesn't change the nature of what has happened. Moving on. Once again, that doesn't change the nature of what has happened. And when I was, as a man, if I were even start speaking about a woman that did awful things, really, really awful things, abuse, harm, constant belittling through messages, refusing to communicate in person and resolve things with no intention of resolving things. Really, really, the amount of this is just insane. And again, I'm not a victim here. I'm not entering the role of victimhood. I'm entering a role of responsibility. And my responsibility as a guy who has a voice, this podcast, my business, my coaching, my men, my social media platforms, I have a responsibility to tell people which women to stay away from and which women to embrace and love and care for. Because men seem to be very confused about these things. And I firmly believe, in the best, kindest way possible, with no false authority or ego investment, that my story matters and that my story will be heard. And that men who are meant to see the truth of it will see the truth of it. And again, I'm sure that there will be people listening or watching to this saying, well, he must be probably lying. And I'm just going to tell you one thing. If you think that I would sit in front of a camera and a microphone, speaking into it, recording it, to put it on the internet, which means perpetuating it into eternity. If I put it on the internet, it's going to be there forever. If you think that I'm sitting here with the intention of telling a lie, then you're a fucking idiot. This matters to me, to men, and it should matter to you too if you're a woman. Because through doing things such as speaking the truth, we understand what is false and what isn't truth, and vice versa. And if I'm saying something that doesn't resonate with you, that's an invitation for you to see what that is about. So when I was going through all this, moving into the new apartment, also like finding peace there was enormously difficult. And still I had my dance. There was an activity I had. It's a dance I called it Pildammsparken. It was a really cute little name and it was a really nice little community. That's a different story, how false that community was. But that event was where I met my ex. It was my event. And that event was also one of my side incomes. It was a donation-based event that served to purchase 2 JBL speakers, really powerful beasts, and to have people come and dance. And they would know, I never explicitly ask money of people. I say, hey, if you wish, please donate. And there were people who were very generous, and that really contributed to the well-being of both of us while I was living with that woman, because she knew I had that dance. She supported that event. She was there also. That's where we met. And when I saw that there was no way we're going to come together and sit and talk, which is all that I wanted, also demonstrated in messages, in recorded phone calls, material evidence, serves as material evidence, that I reached out. I'm like, hey, we need to resolve this. We need to talk. Please talk. Please, let's just get this over with, which clearly wasn't this woman's desire. And I'll let you be the judge of that and why that is the case. So what happened one day was I told her I felt that threatened and that scared of this woman because of the amount of like gaslighting and manipulation, that I told her to not come to my dances anymore. And one of the reasons I told her that is, and I couldn't believe this happened to me. Like if I were to say this to someone, and I did, the reaction was the same. They were like, what the fuck, man? So I went to, oh God, this is so absurd to talk about. So I went to what used to be my apartment, now her apartment. And have in mind, even after the breakup, this woman said, yeah, I want your children. I would want to have a family with you one day. Mind you this. She goes on her phone to find something, show me something. And I see something that looks like a dating app. Like when you scroll through a window, like when you open your phone, there's a certain type of function that you can just swipe, like on Windows, or you can go through the windows. And I know what I see. I know what I saw. And I see a dating app. And I ask her, excuse me, is that a dating app? Are you on dating apps? And she says, no, I'm not. So again, this is a lie. If you're a guy, listen to me very carefully. If you're a guy and you're investing your time in a woman and she's lying, run. Run. You're not there to heal her. You're not there to fix her. You're not there to talk her through the lie and minimize the lie and the damage it has done, because you're neglecting yourself. You're abandoning yourself. You're abandoning your core true essence. And if you made a promise to yourself that you're not going to lie and you're not going to allow people in your life to be lying to you, run, which is what I should have done then. Instead, she said, again, just try to imagine how manipulative this is. So I said, like, what the fuck? Like, you told me you want children with me. And I'm not qualifying or restricting her, because we're no longer together. But I'm just trying to see what is reality now. To try to see what is true and what isn't. And she says, well, I knew you were going to react like this. And all of a sudden, the accountability, the responsibility is on me. And this, I realized at that moment, this happened so many times before. Whenever I wanted to hold this woman accountable for something, somehow the conversation would switch to me. The responsibility would switch to me, and somehow I'm the culprit. What happened next was even more fucked up. Oh God, this is so interesting. This is so absurd to speak about, but here goes. So she somehow manages to crawl her way out of that and say, no, that's not a dating app. And she says something, again, this is a very, very socially intelligent woman, and she knows like how to manage her way through. And I hold her. I hug her after that because I felt really betrayed and abandoned in many ways. Yeah, betrayed, man. Like, I wanted to have family with this woman. I broke up because of that. And then she said to me, again, imagine this kind of abuse and manipulation. And then she said to me, yeah, I want children with you one day. And as we hug, I hug her. She puts the phone behind me and grabs it with both hands. And I see this because there's a mirror. Like, this is like a fucking scene from a comedy show or a movie. There's a mirror, and I feel her moving her hands behind me, and I look into the mirror, and she removes the dating app from the window so that I don't see it if I look at her phone. And I just push her away gently, didn't push her strongly. I was like, what the fuck are you doing? Because I couldn't believe that I witnessed and experienced that. It's not even about what she did. It's about, why do this to me? Why did I have to witness this? Because at that moment, all trust was lost. Because I knew one thing was certain, and that is that this woman does not care about me. And this, I don't mean this in a pathetic way, like, oh, she doesn't care about me. No, this is genuinely not caring about someone and someone's feelings and just being so dishonest that you would go to such lengths to manipulate and lie. And that I don't forgive. Like, if you want me to forgive you for that, Olivia, if you're listening to this, and I hope you are, that is going to take a lot of, I don't need you to suffer. I don't need you to make up for things. I don't want you to suffer. I want you to live the best life possible. But if you ever want me to forgive you, that and all the other betrayals that, you've done, you're going to need to really, really repent for that. Because you want to. Because for your own health and well-being and liberation. Not because I said that. Anyway, moving on. I just had to leave. I think if I remember correctly, we somehow wrapped that conversation up, and I said, look, I'm just going to go home and, you take care. And I remember how shitty I felt at that time. Again, like, I don't even, just reliving these things and not having a clear memory of them tells me how traumatizing that was for me. Because if I cannot speak about the event with full clarity, for which, of course, you need the other person, because if it's a trusting and loving relationship, you would not be confused about what has happened because you would not be gaslit all the time. And that is how important it is to choose people that are on your side, that wants to get to the truth together with you, that will not separate, that will not divide. So if we are a couple, if we're in a relationship, if we are friends, it doesn't matter. We want to know the truth. We want to know what's real. We want to know what's not. And I'm not someone who's obsessed with the truth. It's just facts. What is a fact? What has happened? Not what I felt happened. What happened? And then understanding that from that. Back to the dance. So I tell this woman that I don't want you at my dance anymore. I'm sorry. This is my community. You're no longer welcome here. Not because I said so, but this is my event. The community, you can do whatever you want with. Like, you can meet even without me if you want, but I don't want to see you at my dance. So when you tell someone not to come to your event and they say, well, I don't care, I'm going to come anyway, you can't forbid me, these are my friends too. That's when I realized that this woman, again, utter and total disregard, to the point where I gave her a call and I said, you're not taking this seriously and you don't know how much pain and suffering this has caused me. and I'm not threatening you. Again, I have this conversation recorded. I said, I'm not threatening you. I just don't want you to come. And if you do, I will feel extremely threatened to the point that I'm going to have to call the police. And I couldn't believe those words came out of my mouth. But that was it. That was just, and it wasn't even a threat, because of course she saw it as a threat, of course. And I was listening to myself and thinking, wow, like, is this how far this has come? That I feel that I need to involve the police? Because at this point, not only did I want to involve the police to keep her away from my event, because mind you, like, just try to understand this. This is a woman who refuses to meet in person, who blocks all communication and doesn't want to resolve any single conflict and problem that just keep branching and piling up, but comes to my event. Think about that. I'm just going to give you that out there. I'm not trying to say, like, oh, she's like this, she's like that. So I'm just giving you information and you make your own conclusions, as always. So no to conflict resolution, no to coming together, no to any form of healthy dialogue and loving discourse towards each other, healing, whatnot. But you can't forbid me from coming to your dance. Does that make sense to you? And at the same time, she was already starting the story of me being abusive, me being this guy, I'm like this, I'm like that. And I'm a threat, but coming to my event when there's other people, that's okay. Just think about that. I'm just putting that out there. All right, so the camera turned off in the meantime. I didn't check the battery in time, but that's okay, because if you're watching this on YouTube, then I'm just going to freeze that frame and the podcast is going to keep going and I'm going to give you the description. So all is good. Yeah, moving on. So again, after all this scandalous behavior, again, I couldn't tell. I was like, is this real? Is this really happening to me? I cannot believe this is happening to me. Like, I can't believe I wanted children with this woman. I can't believe I considered this a viable candidate, like to co-partner, like to go through life, oh shit, my camera looks a bit off. to go through life and to resolve things, because again, guys, don't trust what women say, trust what they do. And that's the core, that's the essence of happiness. Like, if you want good people in your life, hold them accountable. And if they don't want to be accountable for the things that they do or say, fuck them. Just walk away. Like, there's no shame in that. You have nothing to prove to anyone. Like, all these people that to this very day, oh, Milan, but you're an abusive man. Like, it's, I can't believe the amount of stigma men face when they tell the truth and when they want to stand up for themselves for their abuse, because no one else does that for us. Like, people, do you understand how serious this is? No one else is going to stand for men when they suffer abuse. And that's a social stigma also, because it's a double-edged sword. If I suffered abuse in relationship, and again, I'm not a victim, I've healed from this, I moved on. When you suffer abuse and you want to talk about it as a man, people just don't take you seriously. I think 2 people took me seriously, and these are men, because they've experienced the same thing. And again, I'm not pointing finger at my ex saying you're an abuser. That serves no one too. That gives no chance to healing. But someone needs to, like, hold her accountable. So there's one guy needs to come in her life and say, hey, that's enough. You can't do that anymore. Like, literally, for your own sake, you can't do that anymore. And I told her also when we broke up, and when all this was over, when you get with the next guy, be mindful, because you're going to ruin his life too. You're going to fucking ruin the guy. You need to be mindful of this. Like, you're going to take this because you haven't healed it in this relationship. You're not going to heal it on your own. You need to take care and responsibility, because you're going to do the same thing to someone else. And that's a responsibility that I feel I have as a man, and a duty to say that, because that is also our role in relationships and friendships, keeping each other accountable. And if people really want to grow, and if people really want to change, they're going to do that regardless of what you do and say. And if they don't, fuck them and move on, because these people are not worth your time. Not because you're better than them or anything, but because if you're genuinely committed to growth, you know what that means. You know how painful it is to grow, and what kind of awful deconditionings you have to go through, the things you have to unlearn, forget. Your body is literally going to respond in a way that's... Why am I telling you this? You know what I'm telling you if you've experienced it. All the physical symptoms of another awakening, another layer, another deconditioning from reality and what is. Just tell the truth, goddammit, as I'm doing now, and hope for the best, because that's going to happen anyway. Whatever happens to you, that's it. Like, there's no better than that. What happened, happened. But we need to hold each other accountable for these things, and this is something that we must not let spread and fester. Because as a consequence of what has happened to me as a guy, I've suffered immensely, and I suffered alone. Because the messages, again, the types of messages I was receiving from this woman, that's pure abuse. And I don't even want to read you these messages. I know them by heart because that's how much they hurt. I remember her writing once, you should talk to your friends if you have any. And this is not someone who cares about you or shows any love for that matter after 6 months of relationship and saying that she wants children with me, family, living together, moving in with me. This is the epitome of disrespect. And I promised to myself, that I'm not going to tolerate a second of it. A second. Yet I gave this woman a chance. Yet, even after that, I said, look, I know you're emotional. I know you're going through a lot. I'm here. Like, let's resolve this together whenever you're ready. But I want you to know that I don't have that much time. That I'm moving on. Like, I'm moving on with or without you. That's what needs to happen for me. And then again comes the victimhood, the perpetual victimhood so many women are addicted to, which is, well, you're forcing me now. Well, you're making me do this. And I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm telling you, I'm going my way. Anyway, my way is, I see it very clearly, and it doesn't have you in it. Now, how we're going to part, we still have the power to choose. We still have the power to change the course and outcome of this together. That's the simplest fucking way. Together. No matter what, we don't focus on the outcome. Who knows what the outcome might be? But my intention was come together, talk about what has happened. And I even offered 3 options. I have this in a message. I communicate openly because I actually want to resolve things. I offered 3 things to her. 1, let's sit and have a recorded conversation. Just record it, hold each other accountable. 2, let's call a mutual friend, someone we both trust equally, that's not biased. So that is not biased towards any of us. Let's sit and have a talk and resolve our problems, please. 3rd option, let's go to a therapist. Not to fix our relationship, but as in romantic relationship. But let's work on this, on being okay with each other. Again, I have this as messages. I've offered this to this woman wholeheartedly. Still am, as far as I'm concerned. And I got that was ignored. That message was ignored. Again, I'll leave you to do the math. Make your conclusions. But as a guy, and as me, Milan, I'm fucking tired of walking around with a stamp of abuser. Because when us men get called abusers, falsely, no matter what we say, we suffer the same consequences. And that has to stop. And it stops now. Because men such as myself that are waking up to all this injustice are speaking up. Again, I have no ill intent towards my ex. As a matter of fact, I wish her all the best in this life. But she's not going to get it until she fixes some things. Until she heals. Until she gets her shit together. All of us. Not just her. Myself included. And we're here to hold each other accountable to do that. There's no more time for spiritual crap, Shivas and distractions or whatnot. we do this together or we don't do it. Because relationship is life. What else are you going to do in life unless apart from fostering healthy relationships? It's utterly pointless to run away from yourself, Olivia. Everyone listening to this, it is pointless to run away from yourself. It is only perpetuating suffering to the point where it cannot heal and will only cause more damage until you sit and resolve everything that you have. Come and talk. You don't have to. That doesn't have to happen. Anyone who has a problem with me, know that it's personal and know that it's a projection. But no one wants to take responsibility for that. No, Milan, you're like this because of that. And I'm so fucking blessed, as people would say, to have this podcast, which is not therapy for me. Don't get me wrong. It's a channel for me to speak to you in the same way you use different channels to channel your message to the world. Mine just happens to be more material and more real. But if you don't want to hear that, that's a different thing. I'm here telling you nothing but the truth. And again, of course, there might have been things I left out. There are always things that there's more to be said. There is more here. There's more there. But if you're interested, come and talk openly, publicly. And if you want privately, that too. I'm not afraid of anything anymore. Because through truth, I've discovered that there's nothing stopping me from doing what I want. And nothing stopping you either. Just do what's best. If you're in a relationship, guy, woman, doesn't matter. Relationship is the most beautiful thing in the world because it shows you who you are. It shows you who you are. It's such a fucking blessing. It shows you what you're made of. How far you're willing to go for someone and your own well-being. People will always give comments. People will always judge. That's what they do because they're bored and their lives suck. Their lives are so miserable. They're stuck. They're slaves to this system. They don't know how to get out of it. They enter all kinds of vices, bad communities, bad relationships, and that's up to them. Those that don't thrive. They thrive. They live a life. They enjoy their life. They speak the truth without any fear. Because what are you to be afraid of if you're telling the truth? What's going to happen? I'm going to tell you what's going to happen. Beautiful things are going to happen. And with that, so let me see. Did I want to say something else? Yeah, I mean, again, whoever listened to this, now you know the truth. Now you know what happened. If you were ever interested. If not, again, as I said, there's always more to that. Not everything can fit in 55 minutes. Not everything can fit into that small window of time. But again, I'm not going to hold the truth back. Nothing can. And that's why I'm so happy to have this podcast, because to those who want to know the truth and this side of the story, I hope you got your cup full, because I certainly have, sharing it. Because I, for such a long time, felt awful, felt restricted and confined, and the lack of support I've been receiving from people, actually quite the opposite, because when people think that you're the abuser, then life becomes very lonely. And I've isolated myself as a consequence of that. No more. There's no more need for that. So if you're listening for this, thank you for your time. It really means a lot. I'll see you in the next episode. Bye.